Hello, my name is Monica Faria. I'm a sculptor and engaged in textile.
Hello, my name is Natasha Moutinho. I'm a painter engaged in walking. We are educators working at the School of Architecture, Art and Design at Minho University in Guimarães, Portugal. Since 2018, since the beginning of the bachelor's degree in visual art, we have been promoting the practice of walking in the curricular unit Studio Practice 1. With this communication, pedagogy through walking practice, observations on power relations, we want to share the developed experiences and practices, questioning this approach from a pedagogical point of view, observing the shifts in the balance of power. And for this, we will use Jean Houssaye's pedagogical triangle.
Our school is in Guimarães, a small city listed as World Heritage by UNESCO, and part of the Northwest region of Portugal, one of the most industrialized areas of the country. Despite the diversity of backgrounds, the vast majority of our students are from this region, with a strong cultural attachment to the place.
As teachers, we believe that we learn from each other and the surrounding world. When the Brazilian pedagogue Paulo Freire proposes an attentive learning surrounded by the world, it means feeling and looking towards a place where we stand. As such, learning may be understood as a reverberation between the world and our attention on the world, implicating ourselves in the learning process. So by sharing, we acquire wisdom.
Jean Houssaye pedagogical triangle is commonly used in pedagogical research. This model helps to represent and discuss the complex network of relationships and connections of the main agents in the processes of teaching learning. In the pedagogical triangle, the vertices represent, by turn, the teacher, the student, and the knowledge. The sides represent the relationships between these actors. Houssaye identifies as the didactic relationship, the one maintained between the teacher and the knowledge, and which allows him, her, to teach. And the pedagogical relationship concerns the teacher process of educating the student, and the learning relationship as the process of the student's engagement with knowledge in order to learn. We are aware that, like all models, it will always have suitable or unsuitable aspects and can always be questioned. And that, because it is a model, it will always be an abstraction of complex and interconnected actions with exogenous and endogenous factors to which we are subjected. We will apply this pedagogical triangle because as a model, it sensitizes the actors and relations implied in the pedagogical process, representing its dynamics, thus making clearer the more visual, the active pedagogical shift that we propose through the practice of walking. We will seek to evaluate the possibility of unbalancing the power relations that are built in a classroom, assessing its effectiveness by applying this triangle.
So what can we learn while we are seated? Working sessions within a classroom or a conference are conditioned by space. The pedagogical relationship, as we know, adapts to the spatial conditions offered. In the classroom, the teacher controls knowledge, transmitting it in an expository way, keeping, according to the pedagogical triangle, the student in the place of the dead, inactive and powerless. It is the teacher who dominates, controlling the content delivery process, the knowledge, and the way in which knowledge is presented. Little is left to the student. His action is inaction. The person is attentive but static, still, an immobile body. This practice, as we know, is very widely implanted in compulsory schooling and is therefore accepted without discussion.
Participating in a physical action, for example, such as using our hands, awakens the body and alerts the senses. We learn by doing and not just by listening. We have to summon up other scientific and technological contents. Our other knowledge, often not verbalized, no longer under the teacher's total control. There are qualities and properties of materials and technical processes that are consolidated as something that is learned by doing. The teacher's didactic task is replaced by support. Didactic interactions change and the student is called into an action. To experiment is to be in contact, to get involved, not knowing what result can be expected. Little by little, you acquire knowledge and all above all, the awareness that you can learn from experimenting. Working in a workshop in a group means that we can rely on our peers, the companion in the construction of the teaching, learning process, and in the sharing of knowledge. Inter-peer learning happens. No longer we learn from the teacher, but from the apprentice. This implies in a reciprocal way that also as an apprentice, we can teach. Activating the body is learning, shifts the power relation among the involved individuals.
We have addressed walking in classes, seeking to expose students to exploratory and innovative methods of thinking about art, our time, our geography, our culture. The studio practice tasks happened on the streets through a set of simple exercises, which we adapt from other artistic practices of walking. We want the group to explore walking, and as doing so, experience, discover, and be nourished with and within the world. Walking is no longer understood only as moving around, but as an opportunity to broaden our way of observing and relating with others, our environment, surroundings, as well as underlying political, social, and cultural possibilities. We hope that by doing such, it enhances our relationships with the world in an engaged way because through our body, and in a participatory way because the student is invited to act. We rely on students' group initiative to create or think of walking workshops. In the one we are sharing in the image, the group built a set of colored eyeglasses and invited us to walk through the city with this color filter. If we apply the pedagogical triangle, we can observe how a direct relationship is established between the student and knowledge. Now, the teacher is stuck in the dead man's seat. No action is required. The teacher is inactive. The student is called upon to lead the learning process. The student acquires an active voice and commands the process, the knowledge, and the results.
As visual artists, we often allow vision to dominate, emphasizing representation as a creative solution. Culturally, we value that we see and tend to limit ourselves to vision as a tool and output. There is no hierarchy of the senses. What we want is to lessen the importance of seeing and to underline the importance of touching with the epidermis, of feeling cold, shivering, hot, sweat, of hearing, tone, noise, melody, of taste, bitter, sweet, acid, and to experiment with all the senses. The challenge is to stay attuned to all senses, recognizing the body, mind, and body as a unity, and to explore these sensations and feelings in artistic thought and creation. In walking sensing, we bring to consciousness all our complex perceptual system and raise our attention to what is happening inside us. The world goes through us. Life goes through us, and even though we are outside the studio, art can happen inside us. As opposed to walking, when we are in the studio, art happens, but our aim is more on the materialization of the sensations than on the experience of sensing these sensations. From a pedagogical point of view, control the decision-making moves from the teacher to the student. In truth, we as teachers have no other option since we want each person, each body to be able to digest life. The student's activity ceases to be an obligation and becomes voluntary and committed.
To experience how the other lives, feels, grows, dies, inhabits, moves is also underlined by walking. To understand what we are, we also do it through difference, recognizing this diversity as an enrichment of us and of the collective. In this project, the Andas, this group of students brought to the discussion the differences in walking and playfulness as an artistic action. As bipeds, we move using both our legs, but there are as many ways of moving as people in the world. How we live in the world is idiosyncratic, but the project also emphasized an important aspect that tends to be undermined in our hyper-efficient and consumerist society: playfulness, pleasure as a form of creation. The impossibility and the unforeseen are summoned into the creative process. Through play and make-believe, learning and thinking are explored, but without a clear end result. Playing is pure pleasure. In playing, the student becomes the teacher. The knowledge is unstable and surprising. So walking allows a greater permeability of subjects, opening the way to surprising and unexpected themes and interests.
In a workshop, which is a walking workshop, a group of students organized a collective walk for the class. The route allows us to go through the city, crossing some of the main places dedicated to culture. The culmination of the workshop took place in the gardens of Villa Flor Cultural Center, where we wove a web of relationships to connect individual notes of experiences, sensations, and observations, building a collective narrative. The relationships among involved individuals become looser and uncomplicated. Things passed from hand to hand, different opinions were heard. We learned to listen and to speak. Each of us contributes with personal thoughts, and in this variety, we discover a very rich panoply of inputs and ways of acting and thinking. In weaving a web of relationships, we think collectively about a theme. The individual thought is reflected in the collective, and this collective is built in active sharing, attentive in listening. Walking works as a tool to engage in participatory project as a mean to get acquainted to the walked landscape. From a pedagogical point of view, the student assumed leadership. Learning takes place in a diffuse and complex ground of subjects. Teaching takes place in sharing between peers.
At the end of each semester, a collective show is proposed. The studio practice is stripped of superfluous elements, leaving on only the so-called final work, where each one is encouraged to materialize what they have learned. Acquiring some grasp on the art of walking, holding a set of experiences, individual and collective, it is up to the students to digest the knowledge and unlearn the work.
Because wandering or walking are sensory experience, they allow a connection with nature and landscape, as well as a new experience of the self. Simultaneously, they are linked to social issues of global and local scale. This allows the empowerment of the student, enabling each one to recognize personal skills, interests, tools that they carry and feel. This awakening shows how our personal experience is valid, unique, and essential to our connection with the world and artistic production. This small embroidery work was made by Lara Teixeira. Lara's mother and grandmother are seamstresses and embroiderers in Guimarães. During our walks through the city, Lara discovered that she could attribute aesthetic and artistic value to a craft practice of embroidering handkerchiefs with memories. Lenços dos Namorados are declarations of love in textile with a long tradition in the region. Her work brought together the interests of this object and its symbolism, a strong connection with the surrounding cultural frame, and the opportunity to include her mother and grandmother in the project. The pedagogical triangle changes drastically. Knowledge is not controlled. Learning occurs independently, shared with new actors, being grounded in genuine and authentic interests.
However, as we are enrolled in an academy, it's up to the teacher to assign a grade and to evaluate the work. We still can't get away from this. The teacher once again assumes the command, but now amplified by the hegemonic power of school institution. This trauma activates the school-related reflexes in the students, who see themselves as reschooling. This transference of mindset awakens preconceptions such as the representation of major or minor arts, or of what an artistic work has to be. Taking on the process, the playfulness, the sharing, and the unexpected becomes an act of courage. This is a moment where either we lose the student or we take a leap to a new pedagogical approach.
So, to finish, from this perspective, we try to unbalance the pedagogical triangle. By shifting power, we can share our knowledge, learn with students, organize experiences, and acquire wisdom. A perspective that we hope for as an ongoing echo. So walking moves power relations between the actors, questioning their roles and character. Applying Jean Aussay's pedagogical triangle as a tool for analyze, we can recognize how walking questions the relationship between teacher, student, knowledge, putting all three vertices in a constant rotation in an action between practice theory, experience knowledge, and individual collective. It is from the walk that we are individually moving as one. Thank you very much, and please feel free to reach us through our emails. Goodbye.
Goodbye.